last move here?
Once I moved here, which was like, well, once I moved all this here, like this desk was in my room last time we did the podcast.
Yeah, now that I remember, yeah, that's familiar.
Same with the Yamahas.
You got the mix cube.
And, you know, in 2018, I moved everything over and then basically dumped my life savings into getting this room like up to par and buying more equipment and getting shit like, you know, I got these Genelects that I use for mixing and a bunch of stuff, and just so that we could have the room just ready to go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now here we are in 2020, despite Corona having the biggest year we've ever had. So things are good, man. Things are moving up.
Yeah,
constantly.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
This whole place has been going crazy lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just seeing like the page Instagram and then seeing everybody, like just all sorts of people throughout Van, like different artists and stuff, seeing pictures of studio. Yeah, I know this place is being like busy as hell.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And you know, continuing to get big names come through as well. You know, like a month ago we had Wonder Girl here, and she just booked out the whole building, kind of for herself, which was really neat.
What do you mean the whole building? Like
all,
everyone
like,
get out?
All yeah. Like she was in A, but B was booked. The white space was booked. Everything was booked. So she just like, it's like, you know, when Kanye West goes to Disneyland with Kim and his kids, they booked like the whole park for themselves. It was kind of like that. So no one else is allowed here.
That's ridiculous.
So
Jesus.
Yeah,
that's pretty wild.
I didn't even come in here, which, you know, I was coming in here and like, this is like my room, you know what I mean? Like everything in this room is mine, but I was like, hey, Wonder Girl's coming in tonight. Can you mix tomorrow? It was like,
damn. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
It's like, okay, well, I'll do that for like that high profile of a client so that we can keep that on our resume. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. That's hilarious. But yeah, no, she's got to keep all the secret sauce. Not a single soul can know. She's got to have the whole building empty to cook.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much of that is what you're saying and how much of it is just like concentration and how much of it is maybe, you know.
Yeah, it's got to be like workflow and stuff like that. Like literally, I imagine that work process in order to like, for one thing, make beats that killer, but also I'm sure be productive and make consistent beats like that and make a lot of them. I don't know how much she makes, but like you'd have to probably lock in, sit down, turn off your phone and just like do nothing for 6 hours, take a break, go back at it for another 6 hours, go to sleep, like type deal. Like I don't know how you do that. How long did she book it for? The whole night?
Yeah,
or like...
it was pretty much overnight. We had like Natasha and Jose here kind of keeping an eye on the place, of course, and to lock up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like the whole night type of thing. So, you know, everyone's got their own way of doing things, their own creative process. Some people are night owls. I definitely am. Like I'm my best like after 10 p.m. for whatever reason, you know what I mean? Like it's so hard for me to sleep. You know, because my wife is a normal person and she works a job that is not music related, and it's like me trying to fall asleep and us having the same schedule is super difficult, man, because I don't know, like in the nighttime is when my creative brain is working the hardest and I'm like lying there like mixing a song in my head.
Yeah, no,
I should be falling asleep because
yeah, I feel that. I mean? Yeah, for me, yeah, that's wild. That literally is like the ultimate thing, just like finding the productive time, and whether or not that's like a good or bad time can make a big difference too. Because like for me, yeah, I'd say I'm like a similar situation, but then like I also work full time, so like I'll be like I'll try and get home from work and try and cook up, and like I can, and I'll maybe make like a beat in an hour or an hour and a half, but like after 10 p.m. it's like I can start making beats in half an hour, 40 minutes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then like I have to go to sleep because I got to wake up for work.
when you're just kind of when you're getting to
Yeah,
your warmed up and to your best,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult.
But I
It's
also
really
do get
difficult.
tired. So like I don't know. I'm not one of those people where it's like I get so into it that I'm like cracked out. Like maybe if it's like a super crazy beat, but like I don't know. I realize, like, I think to myself, I'm like, I can make more beats tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a bad day if I don't go to sleep.
Yeah.
So it sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and you know, you're still super young, and you know, in a few years you'll be able to, you know, you'll start making some serious money from your beats, and then the day job will be less commitment, and the beats will be more commitment, and there's just going to be this shift. You know what I mean? And I certainly went through that, and I'm kind of like at the end, coming towards the end of it now, where I'm really close to being able to leave my day job and just mix till my heart's content, you know what I mean? And be here as much as I want. But for those years, man, where I was trying to make it work, there was a lot of, you know, 17-hour days of just like working a full-time job and then coming home from the studio at like 3 or whatever, just because that's what I wanted to do. Made it work.
Yeah.
So that's what you got to do, you know? If this is what is important, and it is, you know, for people like us, like at any cost, man. Like,
Yeah, dude. For me, I'm in like a bit of a tough situation. Like what I'm working, this is like I'm making concrete tools. I work with like I'm doing family business, and like
oh yeah,
eventually, the idea is that I'm probably gonna have to like be running that. But like I'm trying to make beats, so I don't know. It's gonna be a bit hectic. I've already missed some opportunities due to like having to be at work because like it was absolutely necessary. Like, and so because of that, I missed opportunities music wise, but I don't know. I just realized like I gotta put in more work. So like that's why, like in the past like 6 or 8 months, I've like totally switched my workflow, and like I have times where like I become far less productive than I normally am, but like in general, doing like way more than I was before, and I've like gotten to like start sending out beats regularly and stuff like that, and
that's
like
awesome.
it's just it's about getting on the grind, like even if that you know, the whole productive schedule isn't really working, like I just try and make the best of it, really. And I hope in the next couple of years some stuff starts to work out, so maybe it can be a bit more like, maybe I don't need to run the concrete, you know, business, and figure that out yourself.
You'll get there,
Type
man.
deal.
It's all about like eliminating distractions is one of the biggest things that I've found. Like, you know, one of my big vices was alcohol, and just like it was that like drinking was like a hobby for me. And throughout my 20s, like, you know, I'd be like, I could be making a beat or working on something right now, but I would just like be drinking alone, like, because I like getting a buzz, you know, and like way too often, or just like watching movies that you've seen over and over again, just like because you're just too bored to do something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or just like dumb time distraction spinners, or like watching Netflix. It's like, no, man, like there's like between this thing and this thing that I have to do, and like prepping some food for work or whatever it is, there's hours in the week that are there, but it's about like using them productively and creatively.
Yeah, no, like,
the hours are there.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel that, because like for me, I like, okay, when I don't see like friends or like do some like, I don't know, any type of social interaction with like people I know, hanging out, whatever. After a while, you know, I feel like this would be the same with most people, you know. Generally, it's like sort of depressing, you know. But like, I don't know, for me, I'll get in a bad headspace. So it's like I need to go hang out with friends and stuff like that. But like, I start doing that too much, and then I don't get like any music done. Like I'll like go hang out with friends one day and be like, all right, break from music or whatever. And then like the next day I'll be like, go hang out with friends again, or whatever. It's just like a really stupid like decision that I just need to like get out of the habit of making. But like, I don't know, I feel like it's important to see my friends too. But like I'm like 100 times more productive when I'm at home, not talking to my friends, like just chilling. Like I got my friends sometimes getting mad at me because I just never come out, and I probably just like act like a total bitch because I'm just like, oh, I'm making beats, and like I'm sure that gets like super old to hear, all the time. And like,
Yeah.
especially because the reality of it is like, obviously I'm not doing that all the time because like I do work and like, you know, I'm a human being, you know, like I eat and I do chill and I watch YouTube and stuff like that. Like I'm not like 100% of the time making beats, even when I am trying to be productive, like I take breaks, but like, it's like, you just got to go hard and make sure everything's sort of balanced. Like I don't even know how to explain it.
There's got to be a good balance between things, and if you just locked yourself up, and we probably could, you know, I was going to ask you this question, like, do you feel like you could go without friends and family for like probably X amount of time and just be fine, like on your own, working in your studio? Like, I feel like a lot of people are dependent on other people for entertainment, for company, or they get quote unquote lonely. But I feel like for me, it's not the case at all. Like I have my thing, my lane, my passion, and I could be perfectly content, like not seeing anyone maybe ever. But that might be to my detriment in a way, you know what I mean?
I gotta think about that a little bit, because like, to a degree, like, yeah, like, okay, if I'm sort of on a roll, like, yeah, and I'm just like, I'm doing good, like I'm being productive, I'm not like hitting a ton of blocks, because like, what I do get, like, I get real frustrated when I get stuck making beats, and so it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens more than I'd like. And so like in times like that, it's good to have like either someone to collaborate with, just in general, like that's the only thing with music, like other than like outside people, like talking, stuff like that, yeah, talking to family, yada yada, no, yeah, I could do without that. But like having someone in the studio to like sort of not necessarily, well, yeah, basically be the hype man, the reassurance of just like, oh yeah, like that's good, or like this needs changing. Now, I'm not saying it's like I need like training wheels for something, but it's like good to have that reassurance to like keep the motivation going, because like, yeah, I can sit down for like 6 hours and make beats and be like, oh yeah, like those were all like straight heat, good to go, I'm like happy with it. But then I'm like, what, I've been going for 6 hours now, like I should probably just chill and like go do something else, or I'd like want to go out and do something or talk to somebody, just chill. But if someone's there to be like, nah, like let's keep going, oh man, I'd like never stop making beats. Like the only time I would stop was like when I like have to pass out. Like 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 yeah, last month I was just telling you what we did, like a 12-hour session at 2 Track, and it was ridiculous, because like by the end of it I felt like I hadn't, like, I could tell like I hadn't gone to sleep, and like I could definitely tell I was gonna regret it when I did go to sleep. But it was like, if I really had to, probably could have cooked for another 6 hours.
Yeah.
Like it is just what it was. Like once you get in the vibe and in the headspace, and especially like when you're super overtired, I think your mind goes to a certain wavelength and stays there until you go to sleep. So So if you get into the right wavelength when you're making beats and you're super tired, you can keep that up until you pass out. Now it's like a 50-50 after you get up and find out whether or not the beats are complete garbage. But hopefully it's all good. So like, yeah, I don't know. I'd personally, I'd like to be able to talk to some people, or like have somebody with me to walk into a crazy long studio session, couple week long studio session. Yeah. But like, I don't know, if I got food, I don't need to really talk to anybody.
Yeah. I hear you, man.
It's weird, because you need people for different things in that situation, because yeah, realistically, like, yeah, you could do that completely alone, but then it would like totally suck in some regards, but not really. I mean, I don't know, that's a complex question to answer. I totally over explained that, but
no, it's okay. It's okay. So the last time that we got together like this was a little over a year ago, which is crazy. Yep. I guess I wanted to, check in and see, how you feel like you're progressing as an artist, and like what are some breakthroughs that you've had maybe with your beats, and some things that you've learned, or some new techniques and things like that that you are excited about?
Okay, well, basically, my friend Isa is the GOAT because he like showed me more in like 2 sessions of making beats than I learned at like a year of school. But that's like subjective, because if I was going to be like an actual mix engineer or something like that, mixing, mastering, doing that type of stuff, school, yeah, it probably would have been more valuable to me. But like, because I was focusing on really just like making good beats or trying to make good beats, linking with like a producer that was like onto something and was willing to teach and sort of explain and really help, because like, you know, like I could make beats and I could make good beats, but mostly what was bothering me was my mix. And so once I got shown the sort of quote unquote easy way to mix and like do what I was doing and get productive and efficient, then it was like everything sort of changed for me. So like, yeah, Isa showed me like a new workflow, a new way of mixing that basically changed like the entire way I make beats. And it's basically the reason I'm so efficient. Like, I'm not even efficient, but just like productive in general. I wouldn't call it efficiency, but like, yeah, I went from making like maybe a couple beats a week, if I even like finished them, to like I can make anywhere between 5 to 10 beats a day, every day, if I'm like having good days. If I have a bad day, I might make none, or I might make 1 or 2. But like, yeah, good days, like anywhere between, I would say 4 to 10 beats. 5 is maybe too high of a generalization. It's anywhere between there.
So what are these new techniques? What are the things that are improving your workflow, and what about mixing are you doing now that maybe you were overlooking in the past?
It's going to be weird to say, but basically nothing. I was just like really overthinking things. And I mean, from a mix standpoint, some of the things I might do are wrong, but they sound good when you're making the beats, and they fuck me.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, dude, you already know where I'm going. Yeah. Just soft clipping.
Yeah.
Best thing ever.
Yeah.
Cause I was always worried about my mixes and stuff. Like, I don't even know, man. It's like so hard to even like explain. I was just way too concerned about how my mixes were sounding and not like worried about the actual content of the tracks. So I was really like, I was over mixing things that weren't even good to begin with. So I don't know if you've ever been in that position, but like it's a lose-lose situation. You're like putting work into something that isn't going to sound good no matter what, really.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
So I was doing that a lot, and I realized like there's just like I was overthinking a lot of things, like second guessing when I just shouldn't, and I realized what I thought was like, okay, because I would like go on YouTube and like listen to YouTube beats and stuff just to like hear how my beats would sound in comparison, like mix wise, because I'm sure fucking everybody does that, right? Or has done that at some point. Like maybe they use some sort of mix checker, but yeah. So I go to YouTube, listen to these beats, and I'm like, how the fuck are these things so loud? Like all the drums are so loud, and mixes in general are loud, and so like I'd been using the soft clipper before, but I didn't realize sort of what it could handle. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah.
And a lot of it like mix wise is just like turning stuff up, and then like in general learning that less is more with a lot of things. So with mixing drums, I learned that if you want things to like sound absolutely perfect, like that can be done in a final mix when, you know, an artist is going to record on it, blah, blah, blah. So what you really got to worry about is just making things sound good in the moment and being able to like catch the vibe on it. Because, you know, if you have a beat that has like totally garbage drums, like that aren't hitting, blah, 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 it's going to be like, if it's a super killer project in general, then you know, somebody might hop on it. But they're probably 5 or 10 times more likely to hop on it if it's like just banging and you can, and like it's easy to like really understand what's going on in the beat. Because if a beat isn't like really clear, I guess dynamics wise, like especially with drums, you don't really get the vibe of the track. Like if things are all over the place and it's not gain staged and things aren't hitting correctly,
Yeah.
it can be really hard to like catch the vibe of a beat. Whereas like
You want the right things to be standing out.
Yeah, exactly. So I learned that like there are certain things to focus on, turn those up, and the other stuff, it's just sort of like, don't worry about it. There's certain little mix tricks you can do to like make things sound cool in certain situations, but like in general, let's just make things present and make them sound good. Like good sound selection has been like a major thing for me, mix wise.
God, yeah.
Like
it's kind of everything.
Yeah, no, yeah, because if you well, yeah, one thing I learned in school they showed in Pro Tools was I don't remember what the tool is called, but it's like that it's drum replacement essentially, right?
Yeah,
it's like
drum triggers for throwing in samples. Yeah, that's a big thing in the rock world.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes like the drums in the set sound bad or they recorded badly or whatever. It needs to be replaced.
Not hitting right.
Yeah, exactly. So shit gets replaced. Well. See, the thing is like, if you can get it right the first time, then it's good. But like, I learned about drum replacement in school, and so I realized like, yeah, you definitely can have bad recordings, bad samples, blah blah blah, and you're far better off to start with good sounds. Now there are magical wizards that can turn absolute garbage into gold. I don't know how they do it. But respect to all those people, because there are people on Instagram that are recording themselves snapping and hitting bottles on
spoons
door
and
handles
shit, yeah.
and weird. Like I don't know. That isn't even weird. I've seen far stranger things. There's a whole series on YouTube where they make beats out of stuff that they have to record in person. Those people are crazy, but like otherwise, I don't mess with any of that really, unless I'm feeling super creative. For me, it's just like somewhat generic, admittedly, sound selection, the generic sound selection. That are good sounds and turning things up, and then synth wise, like mixing samples and synths and fucking sampled instruments and blah blah blah. It's just like applying effects to process or whatever you think like sounds good, probably tone it down a little bit. That's what I've learned, and I still generally overdo it, so I'm still learning what the sweet spot is for a lot of things, because a lot of samples like that I make, and a lot of the samples that I hear other producers make is like a lot of really similar processing chains or slightly varying processing chains on like the different instruments throughout, but it's mainly like good melodic content, good sound selection. So that's like mainly what I've been working on, is like essentially simplifying the mix, starting with better sounds.
Do you think about, there might be a vocal on this someday, and will that change how you mix some of the instruments, or how many layers of instruments you put, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like changes the way I'd mix it. Like, okay, if I'm cooking a beat with a sample that I've gotten from another producer, generally the people that I've found mostly know what they're doing, and they have like industry placements already. So I know in terms of the sample quality, like that's good. And I'm basically just doing stuff mix wise with the drums that can basically be undone later and quote unquote fixed, depending, because like a lot of these 808s that you hear in tracks and stuff like that, they're super distorted, super turned up from the get-go, and then by the time the track is mixed and mastered or whatever, it gets compressed and everything's somewhat balanced out. Now I probably could leave more room for vocals in general, but I hear a lot of tracks that have been mixed the same way that, like I mix my beats when I'm like making them to send out, and they sound perfectly good. Like I know like 14 and 15-year-olds that are using the same technique as me, getting placements with artists with millions of followers and stuff like that. And so I don't like that so that's sort of like where comes into play, like not overthinking. Because if I sat there and thought like, oh shit, this 808's like too loud. Like, and I was like, I could do 10 renders of a beat if I was like super, super concerned about like the levels of my beat or the mix. Or I could make 10 beats in a day. And when it comes down to it, and when the artist wants the beat or does hop on it, either the mix engineer is a god and manages to mix it down and make it sound killer like they generally seem to, or, you know, if the artist like feels the need to, they can hit me up or whoever the producer is, right, for that beat, and they can just like turn everything down and then it can be mixed from there. Because what as long as there's headroom, everything can be mixed to whatever specifications anybody wants. And to a degree, like, because the only real things that I'm turning up, like, I don't have any of my drums clipping, like, they're
sure,
except the 808. And the thing is all that clipping of the 808 is really doing is adding like almost a saturation to it that makes it far more present in the mix and master process. And from what I can tell, at least in to my ears, it's either left the way it is, which is pretty surprising, or it sort of just gets squashed and still sounds completely fine by some sort of master compression. It generally, it really is impressive, and you wouldn't think that it works, but like there are, you know, you can go on YouTube channels like Producer Grind, and there are like multi-platinum producers and stuff like that. Well, okay, Southside is a good example. He hasn't been on Producer Grind, but it's like, it's notoriously known that like the only thing Southside as a producer puts on his master channel when he's making beats to send out is the soft clipper. When it comes to like, if an artist wants a beat and they need it mixed or something, they don't have their mix engineer, I'm sure he has the engineers to call to send his beats to get them mixed to send out, blah, blah, blah. But otherwise, yeah, it's basically just like these artists are hopping on like whatever. Like I know for a fact they're like various artists signed under Young Thug. They'll just like, they hop on beats that producers younger than me send to them in their email. And, you know, and it's just beats. And it's just soft clip drums and stuff like that. And they're killer beats. They sound great. Like,
yeah. I guess the big question is like, where there's a ceiling, right? There's like a playing field for that, and there's a world for that, and there's a market for that, for those soft clipped beats that are on YouTube that are still selling. But then there's, you know, there's levels to this. There's like mixed by Ali, who's Kendrick's engineer, or there's Josh Goodwin, who's Bieber's engineer, and you hear like some of the big dance and pop mixes that they're doing, or Josh Goodwin, for example, and you're just like, okay, that's definitely in a different league than these 15-year-olds with soft clippers.
No. Well, yeah, it's almost like, yeah, it's almost become its own style. So like, yeah, they're like, if you it's
a style almost.
Yeah, basically, because like if you listen to like a bunch of the new DaBaby songs, they're produced by Jetson Made, and like, yeah, he's produced for Jack Harlow and stuff like that, like What's Poppin' and shit like that. The 808s are just absolutely explosive on that, and it sounds great, but like that is 100% like soft clipper, and then someone mixed and mastered it afterwards. Like that is like, on God, how this goes. And maybe he like, yeah, he turns stuff down and sends out the stems, but like in general, it gets mixed like somewhat in that process. I don't know if that makes sense, but then like, yeah, if you go to like, well, okay, again, it varies on the style, but if you go to like lo-fi beats or something, yeah, that's mixed and mastered totally different, and
it's kind of made to sound bad.
Yeah, well, and then but I'm talking about like the lo-fi beats that are also still somewhat maybe trappy or hip hop-ish, and then like I'm also thinking about like in general sort of old school type rap beats, like the boom bap shit. Like there's a way of mixing that stuff where, yeah, it can be mixed and properly like gain stage, compressed, all that, like, you know, multi-band, like everything, and it'll sound like fucking killer. Like, don't get me wrong, especially when it comes to like that older sounding stuff, if it is mixed traditionally, in general, it'll sound far better than if it's done through soft clipping. But you can also get real good like mixes through using a soft clipper, because the fact is that like you can mix down the beat the exact same and basically skip the entire mastering stage if the mix is good enough. If you're using something like a soft clipper, you have to
You're kind of
really,
doing 2 in 1.
yeah,
there.
you really have
Like,
to be good at mixing. But like, if you're focusing on like the key frequencies and everything is gain staged essentially the way you want, after that, the only process you're missing is getting it loud. And with a soft clipper, it's literally all you have to do is look at an analyzer in order to find out what your actual like readings are and stuff like that for loudness, and obviously look at your meters and stuff on your normal mixer. And because I know there are guys that I've heard their tracks. Like, okay, Cosmic, it was a really big inspiration for me, like making beats like last year. Like I was really into making Wonder-Girl type beats. And, you know, his master chain could have changed since, but like he has a couple of YouTube tutorials out, and these blew my mind because like these were mixes that I was like, wow, this sounds like absolutely insane. They are killer. The drums hit so hard. Everything is like so present, like... And admittedly, I think this was a track without vocals, but just in general, hearing the clarity of the mix blew my mind. And then I saw it was only the soft clipper, and he had just mixed the shit out of it. And even when it was super mixed, it was actually mixed very simply. It was focusing on the essential things and turning it up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's something that I wonder quite a bit with this genre that we're talking about right now. Is like when, let's say, an artist buys a beat, they like it, they record their vocals, and then they're like, yo, I'm gonna buy the stems now, and then they give the stems to their engineer. That's me a lot of the time. I deal with this all the time, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, you know, to the drums and stuff, there's not a ton that I do. The drums, we're not talking about like, we were talking about rock samples a minute ago and replacing drums and stuff. Like in the hip hop world, you want individual sounds and you want the separation and you want just these clean hits. And the producer who's built this beat in their studio, the sound they give you is kind of the sound that they expect. That's the sound that they want. Exactly. They're not really hoping that you take it to that next level. Where my job comes in with a lot of this trap stuff is just like, put the vocal there and then build everything around it so that the vocal sits. But I'm not reinventing the beat. Yeah. I'm not mixing it from scratch. Like the sounds are there. They send me the stems. The biggest thing that I usually have to do is like improve the 808, because sometimes I'll get an 808 that just has, it's just like sounds like a party next door. You just hear the thud. There's no grit, there's no saturation, distortion, and
so that's the thing though. So this is where that soft clipping sort of plays into effect, because you can render it like when you render in FL Studio, so you can soft clip in any DAW, but like main DAW you'll hear a lot of these soft clip beats coming out of is FL.
Right.
And you can render everything as stems, but the thing is all those stems will still get run through the master channel. So when you have only the soft clipper on it, thing is anything that's not clipping remains unaffected, and because you're rendering the individual stems, you're not getting the compiling signal.
They're not getting to the threshold of that soft clipper.
So what happens is you're left with a bunch of stems that individually are clean, and then basically an 808 that sounds the way it's supposed to. As weird as that is to say. Yeah. Because by the time, like I said, by the time it's mixed and mastered, all I can really hear that changes is that there's some dynamics lost. Not like nothing sounds squashed, but what happens is the 808 doesn't like knock as hard. It sounds the exact same. Like what it sounds like is someone got the stems and just turn the 808 down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's all that happened. Yeah. But the actual, the sound and the distortion that was achieved by the soft clipping stays because it was rendered like that. So that's where I think that whole, the sound of it really comes into play. And that's why you're still getting like, you get like industry mixes that go platinum that they sound properly mixed, but there's also, you can tell there was soft clipping involved there because like, okay, you can throw like a tape distortion on an 808 and it's not going to sound the same, like no matter how you play with the settings, as if I just literally ran it through a soft clipper and turned the 808 up. Like I almost guarantee it. Like there are good ways of distorting your 808s that can achieve like cool effects.
Yep.
But then thereafter you're probably going to have to do a proper mix around that. Whereas there's an entire sound created by like literally running frequencies between, I'd say like, yeah, no, literally 0 and 250, like clipping those frequencies. There's a ridiculous sound and an entire style based upon purely that. And
Interesting.
Honestly, it simplifies a lot of things. I mean, like when I'm making a beat, man, it's weird. Unless I'm using a sample that probably has some and I'm talking about drums here. If I'm using a drum sample that maybe already has some saturation like put on it like before it was rendered, and it's like already a very loud sound with like a low signal level, generally what I'm doing is I'm looking at my mixer and just going for almost the same signal readings every time, because like it's just consistency. Like that's another thing with like being productive with making the beats, is just like consistency. So
yeah,
I don't know, you can sound pretty consistent if your claps are hitting the same way, like not like the same sound. Admittedly I do use the same clap a lot of the time, but if shit's like hitting at the same volume and your mixes sound consistent, like if you're somebody like me who I'd say like when it comes to fully mixing and mastering a beat, you're not very experienced, it's like it's an easy way to like gain consistency if you're literally going based purely upon levels and just knowing that you have good sounds. Like I don't know how to explain it better than that. Like I'll like have my 808, turn it up to like what I know sounds good, and then I'll have my claps at like -3, my hi-hats at like anywhere from -9 to like -12.
So you've got like a formula going on here at this point.
Yeah, sort of, basically. Yeah. And I have my DAW set up with like my template so that like I have all my go-to transitions loaded so that I can just drag and drop them from the side of the menu. And then I have a bunch of mixer presets that I've made over the past year or so that I just use for small things. Like if I'm making a super distorted like beat, like a trap metal beat, I have presets for every drum you could think of, because the secret is it's the same preset for every single one with some volume adjustment and some EQ adjustment. Like the productivity is just knowing sort of, or getting to the point where stuff sounds good and just working with it and basically creating a formula out of that. And then when stuff starts to get stale, tweaking that.
But then you start to develop a style and a sound that you're known for when you work that way. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good thing, because you want to be identified as quote unquote original, or having a style that, oh, somebody wants this type of beat, we know who to go to, because they're consistently delivering that flavor that we're looking for, right? So that's good. I think I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You want to be I mean, there's so many benefits to that, and like consistency, time management, efficiency, all that goes into that.
Yeah, what I need to work on though is like what you're talking about, developing your own style, is like I'd like to cook from scratch, but that's another thing that'll like slow down efficiency. So I like to cook from scratch for fun, and I try and make the best beats I can. But like I making melodies and stuff like that, unless I'm going like for making samples, when I'm just making a beat, I don't usually like what I'm making. So for making beats, I like to use samples, because that's what'll allow me to make 5 or 10 beats in a day. But unless I'm going for like a certain vibe that day, I could be using samples from like all sorts of different people, and as a result getting all sorts of different styles. Like my drums are, like I have a style with that, like, and I've developed a few different little bounces that I go to for different styles and stuff like that. But like when it comes to using samples, it sort of makes your beats like a bit all over the place. But that's when it also then comes back to you to sort of, if there's a certain style you're going for or looking for, like as a producer in my case, like I got to look for those types of samples, but I'll sort of hit anything that I like, or I'm sort of like vibing with. Like there's some days where I'm just like, oh, I want to make like super dark beats that are like 120 BPM or 150 BPM, and like I'll make like a bunch of beats like that. And then some days I'll like do a mixed bag where it's like I'm all over the place. Like I'm making dark beats, I'm making happy beats. Some are 115, some are 160, some are 180, you know, like all over the place. And so I don't know, like I have a style that's just, I don't know, my beats are good. That's my style. Like if you ask me for something, like I'm probably not gonna like know what to send you. Like I'm like I need to figure out Dropbox, because I need to get to the point where I can just like send artists that want beats like just a link to like 200 beats, because if they're like, give me this vibe, it's like, well, I don't know if you'll like this. That's another part where I second guess myself. So I don't know. It's weird. I don't even remember what the question was. I got really off topic, but
no, that's fine. This is all valuable stuff. It's all really good. Well, I mean, we rewind a little bit. I mean, we started by, I was asking you like what you've learned in the past year, and then you started talking about like your mix breakthroughs and gain staging and having different elements stand out.
I just went off the rails.
And then we were talking about 808s and the soft clipper and yeah, I mean, what kind of plugins are you using, or do you have anything that you like go to frequently to achieve a certain sound, things that you like more than others?
Yeah, I was sort of keeping a secret sauce for a while, but like I don't really care anymore because a couple reasons. But I use the East West Composer Cloud a lot.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, so if you've never heard of it, you've heard of it now, and I recommend you look into it. Well, it's like there's some things you can get in it that are mix related, but what it's based on is you get this Composer Cloud. It's a subscription service, $20 a month or something like that, and it's a plugin called Play, and it's basically like Contact, but like 100 times better. But with admittedly like far less presets, because you can't get all these third-party presets. But East West are famous for their crazy studios they got, and like all these like just the crazy high quality recordings they do. And so basically they have this plugin called Play, and it runs off of all these different sample banks that are ridiculously huge and extremely tedious to download just simply due to their size. But basically, you know, you can get like a Yamaha piano, and it's not like some like shitty VST remake or like something that's like being half-ass sampled. It's like they'll sample it with like 100 microphones or something crazy.
Jesus,
every note, you know. And
different velocities.
And every possible velocity, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, like there's a different velocity from everything from 1 to 100, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's ridiculous. So what this like plugin allows you to do is essentially create, you know, if the melodic content is there, you can create things that sound lifelike, you know? And, you know, I had my buddy, like just a couple weeks ago, me and my buddy went to the studio at Douglas, and we're recording some loops because I'm working on a loop kit, and we're using this Play plugin, and there's some violins, like they have like full orchestral banks and stuff like that, and these things are like fucking 30 gigabytes, like for these banks. And it's like everything you could want in it. Like this is the shit like Hans Zimmer uses to like score Pirates of the Caribbean. Like I'm not like I'm not kidding you. Like right. If you were to interview Hans Zimmer, like, oh, what's one of your main tools in scoring movies? He'd be like, oh, the East West Composer Cloud. Like I almost fucking guarantee it. Like it's crazy. The sounds are just insane. So we use this violin, and my buddy is playing it on the keyboard, and you know, him just knowing how to like play and be sensitive with the piano allowed him to play a sampled violin that sounded like someone was playing it live.
Wow.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it was partially to do with, you know, the natural sort of rhythm of it being played and it being slightly out of time and stuff like that, because, you know, even a super fantastic violin player, even if it is perfect, it's not like perfect. It's
got some humanness to
like,
it.
And that always almost actually is beneficial. Like it would sound it would sound bad if it was like super robotic, and
it's gonna sound like MIDI from the 90s.
And so like this plugin, because of the quality of the recordings that are within it and its capability, velocity wise and like panning wise and yada yada, it's like a super good tool that can, like, it's part of the good sound selection part of getting the good mixes and getting good tracks in general, because there's sounds that there's sounds you can't get anywhere else unless you were to own the physical instruments. Like there's entire banks that are like entirely, like there's an entire bank that's based upon European countries and the instruments that come from them, and then there's another bank that's based upon like all different Asian countries and the instruments that come from them. So you got like India, China, Japan, like all these different places, and then you got different places from freaking Europe and stuff like that, and you just get such a huge range of sounds, and when they're all properly recorded in high quality, you can't go wrong. So that's been like a huge asset. And then I don't know, other than that, I got Purity. I bought the plugin Purity. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like a plugin by Sonic Cat, I think is the company that makes it. Thing's killer. It has some pretty bare bones presets, but they're like essentials, sort of like they're really good for making nice melodic stuff. And I use some Arturia stuff too. Like I like the Analog Lab and the M-Tron. Okay.
Yeah, so these are like what we're talking about right now, these are like producer for producing, for creating.
Yeah.
Right. For because for someone like me who does not make beats, I've never heard of any of these.
Yeah.
Right? And these are but this is fascinating because other people that are checking out the show that are making beats at home, they can definitely relate to you. So this is awesome for them to hear this.
Yeah.
Contact, obviously I've heard of. I used that in school. So these are still for like instruments though, right? Like we haven't gotten to the drums yet.
No. Well, with drum, like, okay, instrument wise, that was basically it. I mean, other than that, there's another plugin I got recently on Plugin Boutique called Expand, and that's good. It's another just like sort of bare bones essentials type plugin. Mix wise, for drums, I don't do much mix wise for drums other than on some 808s in certain cases I will use the Sound Toys Decapitator because I really like that plugin. I've been using it for like a really long time. I bought it I want to say over a year ago or something. I bought it for like $100 or something. That's just like a great distortion plugin, like saturation. Fantastic, and I was
using it just before you got here.
Yeah, I love that punish button. I basically every single respace that I use, I'll put a decapitator on it because it's just something, man. It's just like that little bit of extra oomph that is just fantastic. Like I'll throw that punish button on, turn it up to like 9 or 10 o'clock. Maybe a bit higher if I'm feeling a bit dangerous. And then, I just mess around a little bit with the low cut and the, I think it's the tone knob, and it's like bright or dark. Yeah. It's that one in the center. Yeah, that one's pretty good because I think what it does is it sort of like it focuses that saturation more in the low end or in the high end.
Yeah, something like that. It's really powerful though.
Yeah, it's really good because like if you're looking for like a super dark, gritty sound, you turn it to dark, you cut some of the super muddy frequencies out of it, boom, you have a super grimy, distorted, dark sound, and it's just killer. That thing's great. Decapitator. What a plugin.
Yeah, it's one of their best.
I'm not even exaggerating. Like, I'm having pleasant thoughts just thinking about that plugin. Like, it's great.
Yeah, the eargasms, man.
Yeah, no, God. Like I almost have like I have nothing but like good experiences with Decapitator. I've seen some YouTube tutorials. There's this one guy, I don't know what country he's from. He's from like either Sweden or Finland or something. He's a real mix junkie, and he really has a lot of complaints about it because of I don't know what it's called, like artifacting or whatever, because it's based upon some analog saturation unit, and because it's replicated like the original, there's apparently frequencies that because they aren't registering like in digital or whatever, like they only register in analog, it creates some artifacting. I don't understand it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
That guy's a nerd.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Forget about it.
It was like shit I'd never heard anybody talk about. Like, I asked my fucking teacher at school about it. He was like, yeah, dude, like, I don't know. Like, you're probably good.
Yeah,
like, don't worry about it. It was like, it was some real like in-depth shit. So, I don't worry about it because I don't overthink
Stuff
anything
that
anymore.
99.9% of the listeners don't give a fuck about or not or are not gonna hear anyways. So like,
yeah. Mix wise, otherwise, I don't know. I don't know what I was using last time I came here. I think I was praising the absolute fuck out of Fab Filter last time I was here, and I do use Fab Filter to a degree now. But I mostly just use the EQ. And
the 3, the Pro Q3, I still gotta get that.
It's killer, man. I don't know what more you could ask for an EQ where you can just like put like almost an unlimited seemingly amount of points like on your EQ.
That are dynamic as well. Jesus Christ.
That's sick. Like, I mean, for me making beats, I don't have to use that too often. There are a few times where it's coming super handy because like. There are notes that like weird resonances happen, and it's just like, nope, bring that down. Bring that down.
Yeah.
And so, because it's good, it's sort of a EQ and dynamic compressor almost. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, the Fab Filter stuff is, if I had to pick like only one brand of plugins to work with for the rest of my career, it'd be Fab Filter. I mean, between the Pro Q3, the multiband, and the Saturn, I mean, every mix that I do ever has those on it, like all over the goddamn place. And I've been getting deeper and deeper in the past year, especially into saturation and like controlling peaks and getting like that perceived loudness. You were talking about those YouTube beats, you're like, how the fuck did they get it so loud? Man, like, I've been going down that rabbit hole with a passion for the last year, trying to get to that like competitive commercial level of loudness. It's all about saturation, man. It's 100% like controlling your peaks and getting that. It's called getting a crest factor, where you're the main part of your audio file and the peaks of the file are like, there isn't a giant peaks and valleys, right? You want like a thick fucking waveform, right? And then you can get, I mean, ridiculous levels of loudness easily without distorting your limiter or like overdriving your limiter. But it's all about doing shit in stages. You can't you can't just rely on your soft clipper at the very end. We're talking like 10 to 15 stages of saturation and compression and good gain staging, and then soft clipper and limiter at the end, and then you're like, oh my god, okay, now I get it, right? So that's been a huge for me, because I asked you this question and now I'm kind of answering it even though you haven't asked me. But for me, in the past year, I mean, saturation and dynamics, perceived loudness, that's been the big revelation for me, and my mixes have gone
been using a lot of Saturn up. Then, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used Saturn, but I was using it as like a coloring device, or but now I'm using it that way also, but all types of transient material. I'll show you when we're done the show today. I'm going to show you some stuff that's going to blow your fucking mind, dude. With,
yeah, I'm down always.
With controlling peaks and saturation. And for people listening, check out, there's a channel called Mixbus TV. The host's name is David, and he has this video that changed my fucking game, and it's called Loudness Explained. And you just YouTube that. I think it's like his best watched video, but he goes into depth about loudness, quote unquote, controlling shit with saturation that I never even knew was a possibility. And it's like it revolutionized my workflow and my mixes. So that's a shout out for him. And we'll go into some detail in that after the show today, because it's nutty.
Really cool shit. Dude, saturation is definitely a big thing. I mean, like I don't because I'm not doing like full mixes and masters and stuff like that. Like I'm not using it as like, you know, a sort of, I don't know, I'd almost say like a sculpting tool, because it sort of does help you sculpt the mix, because like you said, it helps you control everything. But like I like to use it like in, I don't know, there's no better way to say it than like a creative way, because I don't use it in like a normal way when I do use it, when I'm making like samples or anything like that, when I'm mixing a sample, because I don't really use saturation on drums unless it's like an 808 or something like that. But like when I'm making a sample, it's really cool to combine like heavy distortion and like really thick reverb, because you can create things that sound like fucking dragons and shit like that. Like that stuff's dope.
Yeah.
Like making weird, super ambient, like almost creepy sounding shit. That's where I find like saturation is super cool, because things sound a lot more wild when they're like really distorted and sort of artifacting almost, like not sounding the way they should. Because there are some sounds when you throw a lot of saturation on them, they don't sound anything like what they did before. And then, there are some sounds that just sound the same, but a bit more aggressive or a bit more loud.
Yeah, or thicker.
Yeah,
and there's almost like if it's a stereo, like a stereo piano or a stereo acoustic, like it'll just widen it. It just gives you more of that. But a key thing is like, look at your peak levels.
Yeah,
they're not going up.
Yeah,
like your meter is actually not going up. Most of the time, it's staying the same, but you're getting like a thicker perceived loudness, so it sounds bigger and fuller to your ears.
Yeah,
I mean this is the downside of digital. We don't have built-in harmonics and saturation, because all of this equipment that we use is just ones and zeros. The thing that people love about all the old music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s was they were using exclusively analog equipment, right? That's imperfect, and it has real electricity and heat, and you can drive it too hard and give sounds like really cool colors and character. And all the records that we love were recorded and mixed that way. So when you go to your laptop, that's why it's so fucking important, if you want to sound anything like that, to bring back that saturation that's missing completely from digital.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, there are a ton of plugins. Like there's a bunch of Waves plugins that you can use that have like analog settings on them that do sort of add that natural tone to it, because there's a ton of Waves plugins are based on old analog gear and stuff like that. So there are some cases where it sounds good, and in a lot of cases when you're making the samples, like it is good to have that sort of stuff. Like when I'm like finishing running, like when I'm finishing making a sample and I'm running it through my master chain for my samples is I don't even know what the one plugin is called. It's like this weird like bus compressor thing. And then a tape machine.
Oh yeah.
That's the last thing on the master, because
tape machines are another big one.
Yeah, because it's just like you drive it, a decibel or something like that. Yeah, and
which one are you using? Is it the J37 or is it the Waves? The Waves one's really good.
You know what? I know, like we're obviously talking, but I can open my.
Yeah, I know. Bring it up, because they're all, each one's different, but they're really kind of a lot of them are doing the same thing, right? Achieving the same result. But I really like that Waves J37 one, and I've been meaning to pick it up, because the one that I use is the Slate virtual tape machine, which is included in the Slate Everything bundle. I like that one a lot. But the Waves, there's a couple other good ones out there, and they just give you this, like, if you put it on your low end, it gives it the impression that it's like sinking down deeper. Like, it gives you like these extra layers of like deepness, not like more bass, but just like deeper. Like it's opening up new tunnels of dimensions.
There was one plugin, I don't even know what it was. Like, my buddy showed me a while ago, and I looked into it because I had it, because I have all the Waves plugins.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know what that freaking thing did, but what I think I remember it doing was it was almost like focusing. It was changing the focus of your bass frequency, and like what it would do is like completely change the tone of whatever bass you were using, and like you could essentially use it to make the bass of your track sound right for almost anything. It sounds like nonsense when I explain it.
It's not our bass, is it?
Yeah, I think it might have been that.
Waves R bass.
That shit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that.
Because that one gives like a synthetic bass, like sub frequencies, and it'll like blend it in with your track.
That's what it does. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like it's almost like, because it seems like no matter what note you hit, it's like the focus is still there. Whereas like when you're using an 808, like traditionally, if you're going up higher frequencies and stuff like that, it'll change, and then usually when you're using 808s, like you hit G or something like that, you start getting it almost sounds louder, but it'll actually be like a quieter signal because you get these like crazy resonances. And it sounds really good.
I think it's our bass. I think that's the one.
I think that sounds familiar. That you saying that brings the memories back.
Really cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. So
another one for like to like make your bass go through the floor, like where you listen to it on your speakers, and then you put that on it, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know it could go that deep. I didn't even know my speakers could do this. Like there's a whole nother fucking floor in this house. Like
okay, the master that I use for my samples is I don't even know how to pronounce this. It's the Puig Child 670.
Oh, it's the Fairchild.
I guess.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's a Fairchild plugin, which is like a huge 6-unit tube behemoth. They're like $25,000 now because they're discontinued, but legendary.
Yeah, this thing's killer.
The plugin's awesome too.
I just run whatever my sample is like through it.
Yeah.
I'll just, I run my individual mixer tracks to a bus with that.
That plugin has a sound to it, even if you don't touch anything. You just throw it on, and it's...
that's like, it sort of adds that analog sound to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's cool. And then, I have the Kramer tape stereo.
Mm.
The Kramer tape machine.
Oh, yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah. And like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing with it. It's just slap it on.
Is there a preset that you're using, or is it just you're just kind of tweaking until it sounds good?
I don't even know, because I made these presets so long ago, like the actual mixer channel presets, and it doesn't show me the preset name. This might literally be like default when you open it. Just turn the record level up a little bit, and
So you're using those on your master bus for the new sample kit that you're making, or
tell
me a bit more about that.
In general, it's just sort of like, well, I don't know. For me, like I don't like put like a. It's not like a crazy master chain or anything for making samples. Like if anything, it's like all just weird mixer tracks for the individual channels. You know what I mean? Like the different instruments, and all that just gets run through pretty much the same master channel every time, and that's part of what helps lead to that bit of consistency. I mean, you gotta get the consistency in the mix of the sample, but afterwards there's a sort of tone that gets achieved just a little bit by running it through the master. So just sort of do the same thing every time for that. But like when I'm mixing samples, I generally like do like an EQ with the Pro Q. I'll like have I use like RC20 a lot, like the RC20 retro color. Do you have that? Know what that is?
I don't have that one.
That thing's killer because it just makes everything sound super old school. Like it just slaps a bunch of analog sounding shit onto it, and then you can adjust the total amount that it applies and adjust each individual thing. So that's sort of cool.
Killer.
So we basically got an EQ, something to make it sound analog-ish, and then like I usually add some detune using like isotope vinyl, or you can even do it in the RC20. And then like I use Valhalla Vintage Verb. I like Valhalla.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's an incredible reverb.
What I was gonna tell you about with the East-West thing with the Composer Cloud. This is sort of why I was talking about it. It is for writing music, but there is some plugins that come with it, and so like it has this really cool what's it called? Freaking, it's this reverb, and it has all these different spaces built into it that it replicates and stuff like that. What is that called again? The type of reverb that I'm thinking of. Why can I not think of it? I always know convolution reverb. Oh, Jesus. But built into it are like all these different spaces that have either been famously recorded in or like famous performance halls and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, there's all sorts of weird places that you can use to sort of get the same type of reverb. Like there's a there's a preset pack in this catacombs. Like you're getting convolution reverb from inside some catacombs. That's a bit weird. But yeah, like doing cool stuff with like weird reverbs and stuff like that, and like on things you wouldn't normally do them on, like is a cool thing to do mix wise. Because like I don't think there's any real mix formula when it comes to like making samples. Like I think there's a mix formula when it comes to like making beats and being consistent, and that I think is entirely like, just like I said, sound selection based and like level based. But when it comes to making samples, it's like what sounds good sort of is good, and then you just gotta avoid distortion by like having way too much mid frequency and stuff like that. And
yeah, because you probably don't want to go too far with samples, right? Because for me, in my mind, like the idea of taking a sample is to kind of fuck with it after, right? So no matter what you do with this, what you're doing, people are probably gonna take it and reverse it, or take it and put lo-fi on it, or take it and put, you know, who knows.
Yeah, so it varies, right? Because I mean, like there's sometimes where it's like the sample is so good, it's like you don't need to do anything. Mm-hmm. And you know, like at the very least, it's like it's good to like change the key or something, change tempo, make it your own a bit. Yeah, like chop it up, do whatever you got to do, make it your own. Oh my god, what the fuck, voice crack. I sound like I'm dying. Jesus. But yeah, like, yeah, with samples, it's almost like you want to keep it minimal and like just make sure it sounds good. Like, it sounds like super oversimplifying it, but like everything I've learned in the past year, I'd say, or 8 months, not even a year, like since December, has just been like, don't insanely overthink things.
Yeah.
And like, if something sounds like you're doing something majorly wrong, you probably are. Like, take time to like address it and like figure out what the fuck you're doing wrong. But like, keep doing things. Like, don't like sort of scare yourself out of like thinking you're like capable of doing something. Because like I still fucking do that when I shouldn't. It's like I can make samples. I can make killer samples. It's just like, but if I psych myself out and I'm like, oh, this is fucking garbage, I'm never gonna make anything.
Yeah.
So I just try and, again, good sound selection, and then mix to what I think sounds all right, and like I compare it to like some other stuff. When I'm like comparing, maybe it's a little bit the vibe what I'm going for. Like I'll be like, oh, maybe I want to make a loop sort of like this, but I'm generally not listening to like a loop to compare to like make something like that. I'm listening for like mix. So because you know if I'm just mixing, not knowing how anything sounds, obviously I'm gonna make a bunch of garbage. But
yeah, you need to have references. That's so super important.
I mean, like, but the issue is when you're like when you're trying to make samples is like you don't want to reference a sample and then get it like stuck in your head and then make something that's like the sample you just listened to. Cause like you know, that's not being original. And like I don't think I'm like guilty of doing that, but mix wise, it's like it's definitely good to check in to sort of see what other people are doing, because otherwise you might be like totally lost. But then I don't know. That's only true about 50% of the time. Other times, like I'll just like go with it, think something sounds good, and render it, and I'm like, oh, this sounds good. Boom, done. Just sort of the way it is.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, but and also while making samples, I do throw in a lot of random sound toys shit. Like I use the Primal Tap because it just has a bunch of cool like delay presets and
so dark and gritty. I love that plugin.
It's super dope. Like you can find it. There's almost like always just like a preset you can find sounds good. Adjust the mix, adjust like some
feedback.
other stuff. Yeah. Just some minor things. Get it sounding just the way you want. And another good delay is the Valhalla delay. Again, praising Valhalla because they make good stuff.
They do make good stuff.
Valhalla delay is sick. I made this super dope beat last night where I threw it on an open hat and totally it gave it the vibe that I wanted. Without that Valhalla delay on there, wouldn't have been the same vibe. I mean, I maybe could have done it like manually with like some velocity and panning, but nah, there's nothing that quite beats like a good delay.
Is that the Supermassive that you're talking about, or a different Valhalla plugin? I wasn't aware that they made like. Do they make just a delay?
Yeah, it's called Valhalla delay.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Oh, of course, yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah. Okay. I have a handful of other ones that I use, so I've never tried their delay, but
it's killer, man.
Yeah.
Like it's even got like reverb presets and stuff like that. Like it's super trippy. So that's a cool delay that I use sometimes, not necessarily for samples too often. Like maybe if I'm feeling a little bit adventurous, I'll throw a Valhalla delay on there. But like sample wise, like making samples, Primal Tap is like the go-to.
So for, let's say this beat that you've got that Valhalla delay on a hi-hat, on an open hat.
Yeah.
So that's an integral part of that sound, right? So if you're sending your dry stems to the artist's engineer to be mixed, you're sending that hat with that delay on it, because that's part of the sound of it.
So yeah, right? So that's one thing though, is like there's a difference when you're making these things, or when you're making a beat, like when it comes to like there's mixing choices and then there's like creative choices, or like rather there's creative mixing, whereas it's not like something that actually changes the mix of the track, you know what I mean? Like the sounds, like the frequencies, the amount of compression applied or anything like that. What it instead doing is adding like an element to it that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
So in this case, like that's a delay. That isn't me EQing all the low end out of it and ruining the hi-hat or something.
Yeah.
That's me adding a delay that I want there to be, and that makes the vibe of the track.
Sound of it.
And so it's going to get that delay, and I'm going to make sure that obviously I'm not like having the feedback at 100, so it's like fucking all just a delayed hi-hat. Like we want the hat there, and then you
want it to end, and then you want the next hat.
And you know, and then but I'm not EQing, not doing any of that, because when it comes to like mixing it in order to achieve the mix, the engineer can do that. They can say, this hi-hat has too much high end or too much low end, or we're gonna take some of the edge off of it, fucking do this. But like that delay isn't gonna change that. It's as long as it's not overdoing it. Like if it's subtle, like it's present and it's not like overbearing. I don't know if that's the right word, but like overdoing it, overly present.
Yeah,
it's pretty much good to go. It's a creative effect.
It's a creative effect.
So
100%.
Like I consider something like a delay, like in that sense, like something like using a gross beat on a section of a track. Like if I have some section of the track where the drums get totally chopped up and the beat starts doing a fucking reverse and it's all a gross beat, like when I send them the stems, like they're getting it like that because it's supposed to be like that. They can do some mix shit around that. Yeah. But like that is like that's arrangement the of the track.
You've intended.
You're working to mix the arrangement of the track. Yeah. And if that's part of the arrangement, like sure, if the artist super hates it and they want to take it out, fuck yeah, you could put a scissor tool, cut it out, paste the drums from the other section, whatever. But like, there's that's not gonna that's not going to damage the track mix wise. Like that's nothing that can't be undone. And it's like, it's not a negative having it in there in any way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, in that case, yeah, they wouldn't, if I sent them the stem, they wouldn't get the hat without a delay, but it's like, I don't want it there without the delay. If it's there without the delay, like don't put it in the beat at all. And if it's not in the beat, then fuck the beat.
Yeah.
Literally. Like that is actually like, I'm thinking about that beat. That is the exact mentality I would have with that. If somebody was like, oh, we hate that open fucking hat with the delay, I'd be like,
that's
okay,
not my beat then. Don't put my name on it at this point. Yeah.
Goodbye.
100%.
Just the way it is.
So you're bouncing out that stem with the hi-hat delay on it. Now, how much headroom are you bouncing out your stems with? Does it not matter? Is it hitting the soft clipper? Can you tell me a little bit about that and enlighten some other people that are in the same boat?
Well, yeah. So again, because like I'm looking at it from like the standpoint that like I know it's either going to get recorded on as is, or they are going to get the stems and some stuff's going to be re-leveled. I make sure in general, like my drums besides my 808 is not clipping. With the 808 clipping, that can be turned down if need be, or it can be left, because some people literally like it the way it is. And like I've heard plenty of industry mixes where the 808 is definitely soft clipped and most likely just left the exact way it was.
Sure. Because that's, like we just were saying, that's part of the intended sound. So deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like my instruments and stuff like that, if I'm working and I'm making a sample or making a beat where I've made the sample, I'll like have my instruments like real low, like synths and stuff like that, guitars, whatever it may be, melodic content, pretty low. Like, let me look at the mixer here just for some familiarity. I'd probably have my like sounds anywhere probably between like minus 24 to like 18, anywhere in that range. And then like the combined sound of probably 3 or 4 layers will bring me up to probably around minus 15 or minus 12. And that's where like I like to bounce my samples, and when I'm making a beat, that's generally where I like to have my samples and volume as well, unless there's some sort of compression magic going on the sample maker's part, and it's somehow super loud with a already super like low signal level. Because, you know, like with me not being a mix engineer, I'm going purely based upon what I'm essentially hearing and what I think sounds good.
Yep. So
it's just like I make sure my drums are hitting at the same volume every beat. Like my claps are always at -3, so my hats are always at fucking between -9 and probably -6. I think I said -12 earlier, but no, that's probably a bit too quiet unless it's like a specific situation. But like in general, like when I'm rendering a beat to send to somebody, there is technically no headroom, because it is like if it's an MP3 render, yeah, it's just clipped to fuck, but it's mixed in such a way, and just the drums are present in such a way that the vocal can be almost mixed on top of that. Like I've heard plenty of songs that you like, okay, if you're listening on headphones or like on some really good monitors, sure, there are things you can hear that's like, oh, this is probably not fully bounced out and fully mixed like the way you'd traditionally mix a song, but it doesn't sound like outright bad. Like it's not unlistenable. Like there are plenty of songs that I know are literally just soft clip beats that are some of the best songs I've ever heard. So like, you know, it is what it is.
Again, it's style. It's part of the sound. And you know what? The engineer can turn it fucking down if they need to after.
Yeah. So. Like, yeah.
They can rebalance the stems in any way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? So if you have a mix that, okay, I don't know, man. If you have a mix that has a lot of dynamics, you have a ton of headroom, and things are mixed roughly like what you want, but you still need to get it to a mix engineer. If things are super quiet and you've left an insane amount of headroom, now this would probably be on the end of, you probably left too much headroom, but you know, the engineer is going to have to then bring things up instead of turn things down. Now, tell me what your opinion on this is. Would you argue it's easier to turn things up or easier to turn things down?
I'd prefer to turn things up.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because the thing I find with that is that there are various means of doing things. Like, obviously, you can just use a gain tool or something like that. That's always, yeah, great.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, good. But then there are a lot of people that like to get things loud through, like, EQing, compression, blah, blah, blah. And they'll add a bunch of tones that you don't even really want on the mix. Like, it might sound good, and maybe, you know, yeah, it does sound good, or maybe it's just good to the mix engineer. I mean, I'd assume as a mix engineer, everybody's thinking your mixes are good. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be doing mixes for people too long. But, like, there are certain things that'll happen when you're trying to, like, boost things that are way too quiet. And I almost find it's easier to just be like, if something's too loud, turn it down or compress it just a little bit, do whatever you need to do. Sounds good. But I mean, yeah, you can turn it up with stuff like a gain tool. I guess I just sort of think in the reverse, because, like, when I hear something like that is too loud, I just think, like, oh, the other things, like, I'm not trying to turn the other things up. I'm just gonna be like, oh, that needs to be turned down. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's a weird way of thinking, but
a lot of the stems that are sent to me, or that, you know, the way that the producers are bouncing them out, and then the artist will buy the track outs. I mean, there's usually the kick, and the kick is like peaking it just before clipping, you know, so it's technically not clipping, but it's this gigantic waveform, you know what I mean? And so that, at the end of the day, I could turn it way down or I could turn it way up. I get hi-hats that are at like -16, and I'll clip gain it in Pro Tools like way up. There's no noise around it because it's digital, right? So being able to turn it up or down isn't increasing the noise floor really. So if it's sent to me at like -23, I just fucking clip gain it up. You know what I mean? I'd rather that than it's sent to me. I guess it really depends if the producer knows what they're doing. If it's tasteful soft clipping or intentional for the coloration, then that's great. I want them to do that, but I don't want them sending it to me all like limited where I can't really do much with it after.
Yeah, no,
you know?
I know what you're saying there. So, okay, what you sort of said there highlighted the part in my brain that made me ask the question originally, because this is what got me thinking about it. Because I've had people send me stems for stuff, like either samples or like drum stems before, like either like collabs or like, oh, like, can you mix my beat or whatever. And they do have things so quiet that you actually, by the time it's bounced and you turn it up to a level that it is audible, you do hear the noise floor.
Oh, wow.
And so that was one thing that I learned about in school too. And he was telling me, like, my teacher, Adam, he was saying, yeah, you don't want things to be too quiet. Like, you don't want to leave too much headroom, because, yeah, when it does come time for the mastering, blah, 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 you will bring up that noise floor, because if shit is so close to the noise floor that it is audible, by the time you bring, because, okay, I don't know how to explain.
You're
that.
Explaining it correctly, and I know what you're talking about.
Because, you know, if something is a certain loudness, but the noise floor is an inaudible level below it, you're only going to have to bring it up so much. The noise floor is still going to be inaudible. But if the sound itself is so quiet and so close
to the noise floor,
you're going to bring the noise
it comes up with the sound. Yes.
So then you get like a buzz or a hum or whatever comes with it, that just a weird little sound that comes with it, and
it's just dirty.
That's why I like to have things not like, other than my 808, I don't clip them, but I have them loud, because as long as there is some headroom, there is room to work, because you can't tell me with a clap with 3 or 4 decibels of headroom, there isn't something you can do, and you can't work that into a mix somehow. Obviously, it'd probably be better if you had a bit more, but it's not like that's unworkable.
No, there is no argument for that. If it's not clipping and the noise floor is healthy, like, it doesn't matter if it's at -3 or if it's at -0.1, like, or if it's -16, if that's a clean sample that you haven't run through like a plugin with some sort of analog emulation that's giving it a bit of noise, and then you bring that up, that analog emulation noise is coming with it, right? So if it's just a clean sample, I don't give a fuck where it's at, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
As long as it's not clipping, it's, you know, at 0.
Yeah, because, like, yeah, no, I've had stuff where, like, shit gets sent to me, and it's, like, trying to look at where it would be. Yeah, you'd probably have to be somewhere down in the range of, like, probably -40 or below. Like, and from there, at least in FL, it might be different in some different DAWs, for whatever reason, just like the algorithms, the way they work. But you know what? If you're trying to boost stuff that was at one point at like -40 or something like that, you're probably gonna get some noise floor coming up with that, right? Yeah. But like, you know, yeah, having 10 or like 10 decibels of headroom isn't a bad thing, but like for the types of beats I do, like I don't preserve that. And I mean, somebody requests, they're like, oh yeah, like shit's super distorted, like, and they're buying the stems, or like, I want like clean stems, like sure, I'll go in, drop everything fucking 6 decibels, boom, you get however much headroom you get from every signal being dropped 6 decibels. Because the thing is because this goes back to the good sound selection. If things are sounding good to begin with, and it's not even to do with the mix, it can only be made better when it comes time to mix. You know what I mean? Like if it was sounding good before, and then it comes time to mix, like if there's some headroom or not, really, you almost can make things sound better.
You want headroom to have room to like add EQ, some stuff to it. But again, it doesn't really matter, because if you send it, I can still just turn it down and then add stuff to those stems.
See, the thing is though, is you're also talking about adding. So the more stuff that is, I don't even know the word for it, because obviously nothing is perfect, but there are conditions and situations where things turn out to be, I'd say, far more than ideal. So in a super ideal situation, like you might have a track with super good sound selection, and like I'm not saying every soft clip beat has super good sound selection, but there are times where a mix, and this was told to me in school, I mean, I have not seen the situation yet, okay? But there are times when there is nothing that needs to be added, and the only thing you're doing is having to take away certain things that are less than ideal, like just certain resonances, frequencies that don't need to be there. And because the thing is, if what's there is good, and it is for sure good, you shouldn't need to add anything to it, almost. It's weird, because like there's always tones and sort of results that can be achieved by mixing, which is why it gets done. But then there are those weird situations where it's like, oh no, just take a little bit off of this, take a little bit off of this.
Yep.
Master it.
Yep.
Like my teacher told me there's been a few times where all he had to do was EQ a couple things, like just subtractive EQing, limiter. That was his industry master. Like industry quality, fucking big.
If it's done really well, man, I mean, yeah, even on Mix with the Masters, like, you know, they've, who's my dude? Mike Bosey, there we go. He mastered Post Malone's last album, and he was like, there's a couple sessions where a video where he shows, this is what I did to this mix, and it's like half a decibel minus here, plus 1 decibel here, limiter. Because Manny Marroquin mixed it, who's like top 3 dead or alive engineers of all time. Yeah. Mixed Post's whole album, and it's like, yeah, if it's all good and balanced and correct, you shouldn't have to fuck with it too much.
Yeah, well,
and that goes for all stages of audio, and I know you don't work with vocals a ton, but fuck, man, like when people take the time to record vocals well,
oh yeah, you almost have to do nothing.
Send them to me. It's not, I don't have to spend half the afternoon fab filtering, you know, all the different frequencies out.
It becomes like almost a mindless process, and then the fine tuning, like it's a mind, like it becomes like the go-to. You can almost have a go-to chain for stuff that is properly done, or like very well recorded, and it's like that can be your go-to chain, because you know if you run a good signal through it, this is going to work, and then you just fine tune it, and you can turn what might have been a 2-hour process into a half an hour or something like that. Like, you know, maybe not, but you know,
oh yeah,
like there are times where the initial recording, whether it's like a properly recorded vocal or well recorded drums or good sample selection in a beat, yada yada, can save like a huge amount of time in the mixing. And so yeah, it all comes back to sort of like almost the first steps, right? Because like there are a lot of people, I'm sure like they're first timers when they come to the studio, they just think like they can lay down whatever, fucking boom, you're gonna make them sound like Kanye West, like
I had this
fucking
experience
Travis Scott
last month, and it was
you gotta have good.
I'm trying to find some adjectives here for it, but it was like very. It was like traumatic for me, almost like.
Yeah.
I mean, some dude sent me a song, and then the reference track was a Gunna song, and they're like, "Yeah, we want it to sound like this, like we want it," and maybe the worst recorded vocals I've ever heard in my life, like, and so I mean, right off the bat, I don't have the good, like. For you, sample selection. I don't have the good ingredients. I can't make you a 5-star dinner if you're giving me like caged chicken eggs. You know what I mean? I need Kobe beef. I need the good shit to start with. I need a good foundation. So, I mean, these guys just had ridiculous expectations, and I had to I've never done this before, but I took time out of my day and I sat down and I just wrote this like big email, like straight from the heart, but as professional as I possibly could. And you know what? It was very well received, like very well received. And then they started asking me like, "Oh, yo, what microphone should we get? What, should we get a pop
some people
filter,
just don't
this
know,
and that?"
and they just need the starting steps.
So like ignorant. Just let's send it to get mixed, and then we're gonna sound like Gunna.
Yeah. People need to realize there's some steps that they need to take if they're gonna be doing that in order to get good results. Like it's not entirely just on the other person's end. And I mean, like, okay, I almost feel like fucking hypocritical saying that, because I'm sort of like, oh, bada bing, bada boom, fucking soft clip this mix, engineer's gonna fix it. But like, I keep in mind, like, obviously, like, okay, if my fucking 808 is like destroying everything, like, yeah, I know, like, that's too much and stuff like that. Like, I gotta keep in mind, like, yeah, there is gonna be a vocal on this. So to answer your question, yeah, I do think about a vocal being on there, but I also know that like the mix engineers that are getting paid to mix Gunna's vocals and or
Quavo or insert any
or
top
young Thug, blah blah blah, like they're getting paid to literally like essentially turn diamonds, or the fucking not diamonds, turn fucking coal into diamonds with their bare hands. And I'm not saying like the beats are trash and the vocals are trash, because they're both good, but there's also something that needs to be done in that process that makes it the final product, right? And it might not be it might not be massive on either end, but there's something that has to get done there, and it gets done well. And there are times where it's probably easy, and there are times when it's tricky, but like you keep that stuff in mind before you send out the beat, and that these people are capable, and that they've done it in the past, and you sort of trust in their abilities.
There's also levels to this shit. You know what I mean? Like those top guys or near the top guys, they're charging thousands of dollars for a mix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the microphone that most of those guys are using is the Sony C800, which when it was around was $10,000. Now it's discontinued. It's over 25 grand now for that mic. You know what I mean? So
holy fuck.
And then like an Avalon tube mic pre, which is like $5,000. So before it even gets to the computer, we're looking at like 30 grand. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's things to consider, man.
Yeah,
like
boom. Yeah, right
boom.
there.
You've got to have the fundamentals. You got to have the foundation, the good ingredients, and then we can build on top of that. But we cannot skip those things and expect to make up for them later. That's just not how this works.
Yeah.
So, thank you for listening to my rant about that. But you know, again, that was really well received by them. I was super nervous, honestly, when I sent that email out. I was like, fuck, these guys are like never going to hire me again. But I just had to. I had to say something. I was losing sleep about it.
It's good you did.
And you know what? And like, since then, they've hired me again to do more work. And like, they've been curious. They've been asking me questions. They were genuinely grateful that I did that.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. That's killer.
So, yeah, had to be done.
Yeah, straight up. Well, yeah, no, sometimes that type of stuff needs to be done. And, you know, like, in that case, you're not, I could almost see, unless you're, like, emailing them, like, this sounded like complete garbage, like, something like that, you know. There's no way it could be taken as disrespectful, because that's not what you're trying to get across to them. You're trying to say, like, there are some things that need to be done in order to improve the quality on your end so that my job can be done properly. And that's stuff that they're going to need to do no matter who they go to. So for you to do that is good, because you're the person educating them. That also, in my opinion, that would almost build a better relationship, because like you aren't just like, oh yeah, like can't do it, like whatever, like sorry. It was like, this is what's going on. You explain that to them. They learn something from it. You also probably learned something from it. Like, this is my limit. Like, this is like something that, to a degree, probably just cannot be done.
Well, it was so difficult. You know what I mean? Because it was like, I know that stuff that I'm doing lately and stuff that I've done in, you know, currently is to so much higher of a degree than that, and no matter what I did,
you're almost knowing no matter what, it's not like, going to be up to what you want.
I can't have my name on this.
Exactly,
no matter what I do to this, I'm not like I'm better than this. I can't. No amount of knobs can be twisted here to make this.
No, no, exactly. No, so like, in that situation, no, I think you're totally right for doing that. I think that was a good thing to do, because you helped to educate somebody, and that was not like, it wasn't just like, oh, like learn something. It was like a genuine lesson, because like that helps better them, because that'll help them as an artist. Because if you don't know those like very basic things, like that you need to, you know, have a good initial recording, like the bare basics, you know, you have to have good recording equipment at the very least to get a clean recording. You're not going to get anywhere, especially if you're trying to be you know, a vocalist of any kind. Well, it's a bit different. Me making the beats, I could probably do this on any computer you gave me, as long as I had the links to re-download all my stuff. Yeah. But but
it's not only,
it's different with live recording.
The equipment is a huge part of it, but it's knowing how to use it, because I also explained this. I also explained this to them. Like once I found out what microphone they were using, I was like, then they're like, well, yeah, we know, we've been thinking about upgrading, you know, what should we get? What do you recommend? Sending me links to stuff. And I'm like, honestly, watch some YouTube videos on recording. That was my answer on what microphone to buy.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing.
And they laughed, obviously, but it was like, that's not meant to be a like facetious or like a dick move. That's just the fucking facts.
Well, no, yeah, because some people will then think so. So yeah, you probably say to them something like, "Oh yeah, like this is wrong with the recording or whatever. Like the quality was sort of bad." So what they think is, we need a better mic. Now that's not always the case. Like obviously you need good equipment, but it also needs to be set up correctly.
Because you can fuck up. You could go spend $5,000 and still get a garbage recording.
Yeah, if you don't know
your levels are off and you're,
because you can't be recording while you're clipping.
Yeah, and you also can't have your like air conditioner on and be standing in your kitchen with no carpet and it's reverberating off the walls. Like,
yeah, for sure. So, and some people don't know that. They think it's like fucking boom, wrap into the iPhone mic. Yeah. Turn into the next Travis Scott or something. Yeah. But no, it's not like that.
Yeah. So I'm really I hope I'm not coming off like a dick, but this shit is so important, man. And like, if I'd known a lot of this stuff years before I did, I had to learn the hard way from trial and error myself, but if I can get this message across to anyone listening, you know what I mean? Like just, it's a science. Like recording is a science, producing is a science, audio engineering. We're called engineers for a reason. Like, this is a science.
Math.
It's math, man. And all of this shit there's rules and stuff. There's rules and to play this game, you've got to understand the rules. There's just a few basic things, and my God, you can get an education on YouTube. So please, go out and watch Pensado's Place, watch Mixbus TV, watch Produce Like a Pro.
Elon Musk says any knowledge you can gain at school, you can gain for free on the internet nowadays. And it is beyond
not lying,
true.
Man.
It is beyond true.
He is not lying.
Like, realistically, there's nothing stopping you from being a rocket scientist. Look at Elon Musk. He learned that stuff himself.
Yeah.
From research that he did. That might have been a bit before the internet was really up to the standards that it is today. But if you wanted to be a rocket scientist, realistically, if you got on the right path and started looking at the right documents and were making sure you were understanding what you were reading, actually properly educating yourself, because you can go about educating yourself on the internet the wrong way.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You can do anything if you go about it the right way. So if you went about rocket science the right way, you could learn that shit on the internet.
Yeah.
You literally could.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with music production. But I'd say, there are far more music producers than rocket scientists, and there are a lot more music producers that have advice that is questionable sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So they're right and wrong ways of doing things, and I think it's definitely important. Like, once you figure out what's working for you and what your sort of flow is, to sort of stick with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, you can learn these things online, but
I've
you
learned
can also
fucking a lot of bad shit
stumble
on the
across
internet.
some bad shit there.
I've learned a lot of fucking garbage.
That's just made up. So when you do pay for school, you can almost guarantee that you're going to be learning from somebody who's telling you the truth or something from experience, so that you don't have to sift through all the bullshit and the lies that are out there. But if you find the right resources, my God, they're out there, and that shit's free.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at school, it was a bit weird because the way they were teaching me mixing, I don't know if it was just due to the style that I was working on, just making rap beats in general. It was my teachers didn't really understand what was going on, and I'd take their mix advice. I would listen to it. It was admittedly sometimes in one ear and out the other, but I would take into account a lot of it. But the reason it started going in one ear and out the other so much is because I would take what they would teach me, and it wouldn't really give me the results I was looking for. I wasn't getting the mix results I was looking for, and so I sort of started getting the results I wanted once I stopped overthinking everything. It's a bit weird. I feel like I've sort of worked in reverse. Spent a lot of time super concerned about my mixes and
do you think you were dismissing that advice and knowledge because you weren't getting the results quick enough, so that it didn't seem valuable?
It wasn't even that. I just sort of, but I wanted to be actively producing, and I'd be at school and they'd be like, take your headphones off and listen to me for the next 2 hours. And yeah, and I'm just no, I'm trying to make some beats. It is what it is.
Gotta get some damn air in here. I'm gonna die. Was it a lot of theory? Were you getting demos, or was it a lot of just we were talking about audio science?
Sorry, repeat that. My phone. Fuck off.
It's okay. When your teachers were telling you to take off your headphones and listen to them for 2 hours, was it a lot of dry science technical shit, or was it more?
Well, I'd have different classes every day, right? So I mean, I would try and listen when we were talking about mix and mastering stuff, but a lot of the time, well, yeah, no, it was weird. I'd listen during sound design stuff, and then I'd get bored and start making beats and yada yada, and then be listening during mixing, do some of it, not really like the results I was getting, start making beats, just that type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I probably would have benefited if I listened a lot more, but I feel like I would also had a lot more accomplished if I had not being worried about all the stuff that they were trying to get through to me, because they would tell me things to do, ways of mixing, and sort of ways that they thought that I could achieve the sound that I was going for and the examples that I was showing them, and absolutely nothing was working. I remember I remember showing my one teacher who's like, I don't even, oh man, wow, I feel like a douche. I like don't even remember his name. Such a fucking asshole.
You terrible person.
Yeah, no, I am. And his name's Kevin. I don't know I can't remember his last name, but he's like,
we'll call him Kevin.
Yeah, well, and that's all we ever called him because we called everybody by the first name. So yeah, Kevin. He was, I really hope that was his name. Dude, holy fuck. But yeah, he was like a god at mixing, and I showed him this one beat with like the super crazy 808, and I'm like, how do you think that was achieved? And he's like, bit crushing. And I was like, no, it's definitely not bit crushing. Because I'm going through, I'm trying everything, I'm messing around, just getting garbage, just sounded nothing like what I wanted. And I just realized, like, there's a lot of things where I had been told they were the wrong things to do. But when I thought about it in my head, I was like, this would work. But I wasn't doing it because I had thought in my head, no, I had been told this was wrong. And then I started fucking doing it anyways. Everything got better.
Breaking the rules.
Yeah, basically, just like doing exactly what I just like think would sound good. I don't know. Like when I'm making a beat, for example, and I like throw a respace in there and I throw on a decapitator. Dude, I'm not paying attention to like the actual, like that's one thing where I don't care about the signal level or like how loud it sounds. It's like all about the feel. And so like I'm just like I throw on my decapitator, tweak it till I think it sounds good and just leave it. That's something I do. Like there's no rules with that. Like it's anybody's game. Sometimes it might even sound like shit because I just like overdo it because I think it sounds good and it's not. But like most of the time now it's like what I think sounds good is good. So yeah. So school taught me that there's a lot of stuff to pay attention to, and there's a lot of fun to be had if you don't pay attention to a lot of it.
There you go.
There's a lot of real
That's
anger.
Awesome. Yeah. Anger
inducing things that can happen when you're really methodical about making music. But when you sort of just go with the flow of things become a lot more fun. I feel like they become more creative in some ways. And yeah, I don't know. Again, I feel like I totally trailed off topic. I have no idea what we were talking about.
That's okay. I mean, let me ask you this one question. For someone listening right now that's considering going to school for audio engineering, what would you tell them?
Well, if you're going for audio engineering, yeah, definitely listen. Like, I'm sure you'll like gain some knowledgeable stuff out of it, and you'll like gain. There are definitely like rules, and rules can be broken, but like there's a lot of times where I definitely want to stay within the parameters of those sort of set rules. And going to school will like teach you sort of all that stuff. And so after you go to school and learn like sort of what is good, quote unquote, because again, it's a very subjective thing, which is why going to music school is a tough choice to begin with. Okay, it's subjective. Like so much stuff in music is subjective, but if you're going for mixing, yeah, go pay a lot of attention, learn it all, and then once you're done it, if you are happy with the results you've been getting, build on that. And if you aren't happy with the results you're getting, do everything the complete backwards way that they taught you to do it, and you'll probably have more fun and actually get some cool results. Because the thing is like there's always a way to find the point at which something sounds good. It's weird. Like again, if something is like completely terrible to begin with, there's no saving it. It's gonna be bad no matter how much glitter and makeup you throw on it, even if we're talking about an audio file. But like if you have good things, learning that the capability to mix and shit like that, if you're learning to fucking do mixes, you definitely want to have that knowledge before you want to start experimenting and going all wild. And if you don't like the results you've gotten, completely disregard everything and go wild because you have that knowledge and can do it anyways. It's sort of like learning how to ride a bike. Like, you want to know how to ride a bike properly before you start busting out wheelies, I guess.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, or start doing
it's not really a good way to put it, but it sort of is.
Well,
I mean, like, you gotta learn to ride the bike. You gotta get the training wheels off.
Yeah.
And then you can start doing all that wild shit and injure yourself along the way. But then eventually, one day you'll maybe be a master at wheelies, or you'll be a very mangled person. I don't know. So that's the thing. You sort of gotta once you get to that point, you gotta like keep yourself on your own path. There's like, no matter how much school you go to, I think like you'll learn stuff, but then afterwards you're like shaping your own sound. And if you start shaping your own sound and it's bad, you need to like do some like corrective action to like fix it. Because you can definitely go down the rabbit hole where like everything you're doing mix wise is wrong. Like, I used to do that. Yep. Like, everything I would do mix wise just fucking terrible. Like, absolutely, why would I do it? Like, what was I thinking? And if I knew some of the stuff I learned from music school back then, I would have learned that like less is more, for example. Like, that's one thing that going to school for mixing sort of teaches you, is that like a lot of the time less is more. Like, there are situations where things need to be extreme, but more often than not, you don't really need to like overdo a whole lot of things. Or if it's like a ton of processing, it's like each individual piece of the processing chain will be doing something minimal, and the effect that is achieved through the stacking of all that
up. Yeah.
So you learn that in music school, and I don't think you like get a good grasp of that if you don't go to music school, because it's sort of like anybody's game. You can like watch YouTube videos where people have their fucking reverbs on 100% wet and somehow they have it sounding good. But if you like go to music school, you'll learn that 9 times out of 10 you're probably better off to have your reverb probably within like 15 to 25% and adjusting your decay time and yada yada, like learning how to do stuff rather than just Mickey Mousing it, essentially. So I don't know, like, that's how I feel. Like, I Mickey Mouse things, but I also know the general gist. Like, I know, like, if you're compressing drums, for example, if you're doing the crazy drum compression, if you're compressing more than like 3 or 4 decibels, you're probably squashing a lot of the transients in your drums. And in some situations, like, yeah, that's a good thing, but like more often than not, you probably don't want that. So like, you need to look at your mix before the compression hits and yada yada. So like learning about all that stuff in music school is good, but I think for just making beats, you don't need it too much. It's mostly about just making things sound good, sending it out.
Yeah, and I think having a good idea of what it is that you want to do before going to school will really help, because when I went, there was a handful of guys that I knew that threw down this big chunk of change, or their parents helped them throw down this big chunk of change, went through school, and now they're, manager at Aritzia or an electrician or whatever. The guys that didn't know going in what they wanted just went through it and got nothing from it. And the guys that went in that already had a music background, that were like, I'm going to do this. I want to be this. I have a goal. I have an idea. Are all still doing it now, and I'm still in touch with them. You know what I mean? So, paying that tuition and going to school does not guarantee you fucking anything.
Yeah, well, and I know that for sure. Yeah. And it's sort of funny. Like, I don't know. I sort of it would have been cool to have somebody support me to go through school, but like I don't know. I'm proud of the fact that, other than the fact that I got some scholarships for some fucking very hard work and long hours that I put in doing various things. Like I paid for my tuition all myself, so like sort of all on me. Like, if music school doesn't fucking go anywhere, it's like I like conned my dad out of like fucking $6,000 or $8,000. Like, no, I threw down, whatever it was, $12,000-$13,000 to go to a year of school. Like, it wasn't anything ridiculous. Like, I didn't go to Nimbus, like no $50,000 crazy shit. But like I threw down the money for my 1 year of schooling. Like I worked for it.
Yep.
Fucking did what I did, and that's why I don't really like, I don't have any problem saying like, oh yeah, there's some shit that I just like didn't listen to at school. It's like, because that was on me. Like I paid for it. It was up to me to like fucking listen to it, like gain that knowledge and throw it away if I chose to do so. So I went to school. I sort of took away what I needed to take away from it. Like I would say, like I didn't fucking understand theory for shit, but like what I did understand helped me majorly, just like for writing and mixing. Like I just learned some general rules that sort of like helped me, which is like, you don't want things too loud. You don't want things too quiet. You don't want too much, like no effect needs to be at fucking 100%. Like there should be no effect on your fucking bus. Like on anything that's like 100, like man, like no, unless it's an EQ and that it is 100% applied to the sound.
Yeah, it's not like
parallel. Fucking nothing should be 100 ever. Like if you put 100 like a saturation on something and it's 100% wet, like fuck off.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing? So
those blend knobs are there for a reason.
Yeah, but if you don't fucking know that, like you could just be totally like not doing things right and thinking like, oh, this distortion makes everything sound good. Let's put it on everything because like that's like what people that don't know how to make, like admittedly that's more like first day in a fucking DAW type thing, but like you know what I mean? Like there's sort of guidelines that you learn at the very least when you go to school. Like there's the bare basics, which are like essentials, I would say. So like at the very least, go to school for like a fucking year to learn the bare essentials, which are like some rules. And that's why I would say, and that's why I would say like pay attention, because if you go to school for just a year and you fuck around, don't like listen to anything, you're gonna be no better off than when you started. Yeah. So like the key difference is like I didn't listen to everything, but I listened to the stuff that I knew to a point would prove beneficial for me, like the theory. Because like obviously I wanted to get better somewhat at writing melodies, like just learning okay, this might be super basic for some people, might be super advanced for others, but like me learning about inversions and shit like that, fucking game changer. Yeah, man. Like killer. So much easier to make cool chord progressions just knowing that I can literally highlight a note, throw it up an octave, boom, new chord. And it's in the scale and it sounds killer. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like so learning stuff like that's good. But then like it was also good to learn that in general with a lot of my mixing techniques, I was overdoing it with a lot of stuff. So I learned to tone it down, and then after I learned to tone it down, I learned that all I really needed to do was turn stuff up. This is a weird way, like super weird. Cause like school for me wasn't really like it wasn't really production. I don't know. It wasn't really focused on fucking anything. Like now that I think about it, because like I didn't really gain anything like game changingly substantial from it. Like I wouldn't say it made me like 10 times better at making melodies. Didn't make me 10 times better at mixing. Just sort of gave me like a little bit of a grasp on it. You know what I mean? A little
boost, a little head start. Yeah. But a lot of what you do now, and where I know this is extremely true for me. Like I'm here right now because of all the work I've put in after school.
The difference, like I fucking, after I finished school, I was almost like destroyed, like emotionally, just due to the fact I was like, wow, I just finished a fucking year of school, and like I am like almost, well, in my own opinion at the time, and I think it was fair to say that was almost the truth, I was nowhere better off than I was when I started, other than some minor things. And so when I met Isa and started cooking up beats with him and stuff like that, that's sort of where the stuff that I did learn in school that sort of did stick with me a little bit, like resonated, because I was able to incorporate it better. Because what Isa showed me was like sort of a better workflow in FL in general, like better way to do things, just like keeping more arranged, but then also taught me a bit about writing, and then a bit on how to have better bounce with drums. And then, so once I started achieving that stuff, then it was like, oh, this is actually worth like doing this mixing trick here and there to like actually make it sound good or make it sound cool, because like I actually have something good to begin with. Like I was saying earlier, there's no point in like trying to polish a piece of coal into like a diamond. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to just get a new 808 than spend 8 hours trying to get the right distortion for it, or fuck with a kick drum that's wimpy. Like, get a better sample.
Yeah,
you know.
And so, yeah, I'm like, once I started getting my eyes open to stuff like that, it was like, all right, fucking some of the tools I learned in school started becoming handy. Like, I learned sound design for a bit when I was going to Langara.
That's cool.
Learned how to sound design on Serum, and I actually used that skill that I learned at school pretty recently because I was doing a remix of Nasty's song "Buck" or whatever, and I redid the drop and used entirely sounds that I designed from. Not entirely from scratch. I think I did use some third-party wavetables, but in terms of how everything's routed and what everything's doing, like, that's all me. And like being capable of doing stuff like that and making these cool sounds is like cool. That was something applicable from school, but then like the mix wise is just like it's the notes in my head that just incorporate into like everything I do. Like I couldn't honestly tell you that like it's something I consciously think. Like I don't, when I'm mixing, I'm not thinking like, oh yeah, less is more, less is more. Like I learned this in school. Like I'm fucking using school knowledge right now. It's just like, it's sort of just hardwired in my brain, and it's almost like a little fucking spider sense in my head now. It's like, oh, that's overdoing it. Tone it down a little bit.
Nice.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You
like
got,
I'm not saying like
it's not
like I'm making like some godlike mixes. Like I'm making average mixes. I think they sound good. There are far better mixes out there. But like I'm happy with them, and if I'm happy with them, that fucking lets me sleep at night. What doesn't let me sleep at night is when I have fucking terrible mixes, and so like that shit was fucking with me, man. I was just like, yeah, I learned to mix the way I do and incorporate all the little things I learned, and I've been sort of good ever since. I mean, I have ups and downs, and I occasionally get a really bad mix, just because like I'm totally out to lunch on whatever the fuck I'm doing, but then I'll take the time to correct it, and it is what it is. So,
well, everyone goes through that, man, and really the only person you're competing with is yourself. And if you can say with confidence, like, my mixes are better than they were a year ago, then that should be enough to help you sleep. Because a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I mean, if you're just going up, that's all good. That's how I look at it, you know, for me. And I go out there, every single mix I listen to, no matter what it is, I get envious, even if it probably is worse than mine. I have mad mix envy, but I keep my ego in check, and I go, look, like, we've come so far in just this past year. Like, I've learned so much. My skills have gotten so much sharper. So that's I don't need to compare myself to anyone else, just me, who I was last year, and I'm on this journey. This is about me getting better, you know?
So to sort of add on to this and incorporate, because like what you're saying there is, yeah, over time, how you get better with things just in general by putting in this work. This is something I learned through both. Like, this is a reason I would say you should go to school, and this is something I've learned through just like putting in work. So, and I'm sure you can relate to this. Learning like mixing, learning to be a mix engineer, or like doing school for music in general, learning any type of mix related stuff, what it'll teach you is sort of how to troubleshoot. And this is like where that engineering part comes in, and it's almost like math, because you'll hear things, problems in your mix, and then that's sort of like you could almost consider that like getting the wrong answer. So you have to go back into your chain and see where you messed the numbers up, which is like correcting something that you might have overdid or not done enough of, or you maybe had something set wrong, or, you know, yada, whatever the setting is, right?
Sure.
Like, you going in and dialing all that stuff in and troubleshooting in order to get this desired sound is sort of like you doing that math as you know, from the engineer standpoint. And so I think like going to school, like, because you sort of learn the basics of mixing and learn how like a chain is built, for example. Like, I think one of the like, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but you learn in school when you're learning mixing, recording, fucking mastering, all that stuff. You learn the recording chain. right? Which is like,
Are you talking about signal flow?
yeah. Like even just shit like that. But then like, so you can do signal flow, and then that translates to a DAW too, because when you're doing a signal flow chart, you're taking into account everything, like the compressor that it's probably going to be running into, whatever your console interface, blah blah blah. So that you can almost consider that compressor or whatever it may be that you're running into is like, that's part of the mix change. So you're like having to figure out what parts of things need to be addressed in order to get the results you want. And so when you hear a problem, or you're hearing a certain sound and you're hearing something that needs to be fixed, you need to be able to analyze what you're doing in order to go in and fix it. So you don't like, you're just like, oh, what the fuck is that that's doing this? And you're like changing all these settings, and then you've destroyed what you're working on. Like, I think that was one thing that going to school sort of showed me, is like, if you're like having a mix chain and like everything's sounding good, and then you add an effect, and then you're on the next one and you're doing some stuff, and it's starting to not sound right, and then you're on the next one and it's just sounding bad. Well, obviously you've messed something up along those last two things. You're probably gonna need to go and correct it, whether it's like, you know, you've accidentally squashed some shit with your compressor, you've oversaturated, or you've taken out too much low or high, and you know, whatever it is. Like, it's about being able to address those issues and correcting all that stuff.
Mixing is problem solving with sounds.
Yeah.
And it's about
that's where a lot of people get confused. Like, they don't think about it like that though.
Yeah, and you have to understand, like you said, every step of the way, because sometimes piling on more plugins is not going to fix it. It's actually something 6 steps back that is really fucking the whole thing up for you, the broken piece in the chain, right?
Well, yeah, I figured that out, like making EDM, like when I was doing the remix for Nasty's song. Like, I would have, because when you're doing EDM, man, you got like fucking ridiculous processing chains on some shit. Like, just all the different effects going on, and like I'll have a mix chain going on where I'll have whatever, and then a serum effects, which is an entire effects bus within the fucking mixer.
Oh wow!
Like, going on. So you'll just have like so many crazy stacked effects, and then so after a while, then you bounce it, and then you hear like, oh, I did like way too much like one thing that's super cool to do when you're mixing EDM is you use what the fuck is it even called? It's like, it's this crazy type of delay or whatever it is, and it just like totally changes the sound that you're using, and you can layer it so many times, and it basically, it's like hyperdimension. So
okay. Don't know that
I
one.
I don't even fucking know what it does. Yeah, it's almost unexplainable. Like, you ask people what it does, and they don't know, because it's like, I think what it does is it like adds stereo separation and then like reverb, but like some weird way. But you can layer this effect like multiple times, and it essentially like thickens and makes the sound more robotic, but like sounds good to a point, and then you can start overdoing it. So I was rendering this beat or this song, and I listened to it, and I was like, oh, put a bit too much hyperdimension on it. Like, but I was able to identify like what I did wrong.
Yeah,
in the mix.
Identify it early on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, you know, I had done the sound design and stuff like that. I was happy with the sound design, and when you're making EDM, a lot of the stuff that can change the sound actually does happen in the processing, so that was why I was having to address it. But like, yeah, I go and fix it, and boom, then I got it sounding the way I wanted to, or as close as I sort of could. Still not really happy with it, but it is what it is. But it's good to like that. For me, is better than being like completely lost, because like there's so many times in the past where like I'd be doing something and be like, fuck, what did I fucking do wrong in this mix?
Yeah.
Scrap it. Nope, not anymore. Go in, figure out what it is.
That's good. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Analyze. You gotta learn how to analyze your project.
Retrace your steps and kind of rebuild it instead of just throwing your hands up and throwing in the towel, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it literally requires you to strip all your mixer channels and reset everything to 0.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that, dude.
Yeah, it happens. But you know, you got to be able to figure out what it is, because like, you know, if you have absolutely no idea, if nobody's ever explained that to you, or you haven't had a good demonstration of like how a chain works, or like what is going on and what is too much and what's too little, blah blah blah, you're not really gonna ever have a good starting point. So I think it's like important to have that like fundamental sort of grasp.
Oh yeah, hugely.
You know, so I feel like school is sort of responsible for that. I mean, like I knew what a fucking processing chain was before, but now I sort of understand there are good things to put first and good things to put last.
Yeah.
Things that you don't want to put in between, yada, yada, yada. But then sometimes it sounds good if you do that stuff. So, it's good to learn the stuff because you also learn what you can do the complete opposite way. That's another reason to learn it. I
think it's important to know the rules before you break them. Because there are creative benefits to breaking the rules, but you can get yourself into a lot of trouble if you don't understand the rules or the fundamentals of how to do it correctly or how you got there. So I think that's super, super important.
I almost, one thing we should do after the podcast is I want to show you this video, and it's Skrillex released 2 songs. I don't know when it was, sometime last year, maybe the year before, but his official release of the song was, I guess, probably either the render layered over a video of him going through his Ableton project, or the recording straight out of the Ableton project. Like the audio of the official release was of the screen recording of his DAW. Okay. Yeah. So basically what it is he's going through his project as it's playing and showing you what he's done and so you would be absolutely disgusted to see what this guy is doing on his mixer. Like, no compressors. He's got limiters slamming his drums and shit like that. And it sounds fucking perfect, man. Like, it's almost an unbelievable video to watch. But then there's this one part in it, and this is the best part of the whole song. This section comes back in, and it was a part that you hear previous in the first half of the song. But this time when it comes in for just like 1 or 2 beat section, it's like hard clipped. Hard clipped to fuck. Like, over your phone, like it sounds like the speaker is limiting, but it's like meant to be like that. Like he wanted it to be like that. He knew what he was doing when he was mixing.
Yep.
Took a creative decision there
to break the fucking rules on purpose.
And like it sounds like you could argue, you'd be like, oh, that sounds bad, but like for the vibe of it, fucking sound just killer. Yeah, it works so perfectly. And it was just like amazing to see that, like, there are some people that the entire way they mix is essentially the ass backwards way almost of doing things. Like when I'm not kidding you. When you look at the Skrillex project, you're gonna be like, what the fuck, man? Like, what?
I'm really interested to see it now.
Yeah, it's killer. But like that was a good eye opener to sort of see that you can really do anything the way you want. Like any way you want. It's just, if it sounds good, it is good. But there are definitely rules to follow, for sure.
Look, well, let's wrap this up, and then we can do a little bit of
hurting, man. Like, straight up. I don't know if I've been talking too loud the whole time. We've been going
2 hours.
My voice is like
just over 2 hours. So
my voice is dead. I need water. Like next 5 minutes for sure.
So just let everybody know where you can be found on the socials and online.
My Instagram is at MakerMadeThis, like the @ symbol, you know. And I have a YouTube that's extremely impossible to find right now for whatever reason. So if you can find it, it's Maker. And I just upload beats on it. If you find it, subscribe to it so that, you know, the YouTube algorithm starts recommending my channel when you look that up.
Yeah, that's right.
That'd be pretty killer. Other than that, I don't really have any socials at the moment. I don't know what my track train is, and I don't really upload on it anyways. That's just my beat store. So just YouTube and Instagram. So yeah, at MakerMadeThis and Maker on YouTube.
Wicked, man. Good stuff. Well, thanks so much for doing this. This was
Thank you for having me.
I hope people found this enlightening. Hopefully we didn't go too deep down the rabbit hole. I know some people will be able to speak our language this episode, and some people might.
I talked so much and just so endlessly. I ranted. I do that a lot. I talk way too much.
But we got really deep into some of the technical stuff and the nerd shit, and I really enjoyed it, man. So thank you so much. And thanks everybody for listening, for checking us out. We will see you very soon. Take care.
Peace.